Now we're going to use the help of the index and match formula to give us interactive charts. So if you have a case like this one, and your boss comes to you and says, please, well, I may not say please, but now show me the data for March, that you never have to do this. But instead, you're going to do this. Now to get this effect, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is to use the index and match function. So I'm just going to remove these and we're going to do this together from scratch. So the formula we need here is actually identical to the formula we learned in here. We will need to look up our company from the rows and we need to look up our month from the columns. So we will need a two-time match. It's going to be an index match. We're going to start our formula with index. And always remember, what you're indexing is the area where your answer could be in, which is that. So, and also let's not forget about what we need to fix because we're planning to copy this formula down. So we need to fix our index range. Then for the rows, we need to match the company we have here in this range. And in this case, it's a 1-to-1, so I could just reference the cell and copy this down. But I'm going to do it dynamic, so just in case my companies that I'm preparing for the chart move around, that it's actually looking up the company I want. So when I match this, I also have to be careful about what I need to fix. That's my lookup range, and I want an exact match. Next comes my column. I need to look up which month I need in the column, so I need another match. What I'm looking up is this. Where I'm looking it up is in here. I'm going to fix this. And again, I need an exact match. I just have to make sure if I have fixed everything properly so that I can drag it down. This looks good. This is my month, and I do need to fully fix that as well. Okay, so let me see if this is correct. So we take company D March, it should be 509. Company D March 509. Looks good. If I do change my month, my data changes as well. So now it's a piece of cake to add a chart. I just mark company and month. I go to insert a column chart. And now I just have to update the formatting. I can remove these, change the color of these, remove the axes, add data labels to them so that when I change this, it changes as well. Now, if I wanted to add something more to this that I don't have in my series name, because that's what it's taking right now, it's taking my series name, I could create a formula in a cell that shows me the result of what I want to see as my chart text. In a chart text, you cannot have formulas. I won't be able to write month and this. Doesn't accept it. What I can do, though, is to write this formula in a cell. So I would say is equals month and this cell. And then I reference that cell for my chart title. So that works. Whenever you want to add or concatenate different cells for your chart title, you should do that in a separate cell in Excel and then reference that with a formula. Now we're going to take it up a notch to get even more impressive results. Because let's be realistic, our data is not always organized the way that you see it in training sessions. So here I have a real case example. In this case, the data is provided in this format so that we have our years in the rows and our months in the columns. And the client I was consulting wanted to put my suggestions to use, and they wanted to create an interactive chart that always showed the last 12 months whenever they selected the month up there from the point of view. But then how do you move up a row when your year changes? And how do you move down columns when your month changes? Press pause here and think about it for a second before I show it to you in the demo. We're going to do this together. Before, I'm just going to show you how this works. So here is where you can make your selection. I have, for example, let's say July 2014. So I have July 2014. That's basically my last point on my chart, and then it goes back 11 months. So from August to July is what's going to be reflected in that chart. I'm doing the same concept like we've seen before, where I have my raw data here, and here I prepare the data that I need for the chart. And how have I done the preparation? It's going to be with index and match. So I'm going to remove this altogether. We're going to start off with the month and the year that have been selected. This is equal to my selection, and this is equal to my year that's been selected. This is going to be where our data is. But first off, let's do months, then we do year, and then we do the data. So what formula could I use to give me 1 month before July? I could use the offset, and I could use the index. I'm going to use the index. Equals index. The first thing that we need to think about is, where is this answer to our question? That's what we need to highlight. The answer should be a month. So we need this. It could be any of these months. I'm going to fix that. Now we need to think about the rows. Do I need to move any rows up and down? No. So I can put a 0 or 1, or I just leave it out. Leave it empty. Now comes the column. What column do I want? Well, I do need to look up what my next column is. So in this case, it's July. And then I need to move 1 back. So I do need a match function, because first thing is I have to figure out what number is this. So I'm going to match this where here. And I'm going to want to have an exact match. And then I need to go back 1. So I do a -1. June. Looks good, doesn't it? So let me think about, what do I need to fix? Is there anything? This part I don't want to fix, because when I drag this all the way to the left, I want my lookup value to move. But my match range is what I do want to fix. I'm going to fix that. Looks good. Let's go all the way back. And here we can see that we get into a problem because we have Jan and then comes May. What happens is that our match function doesn't know what to do anymore when it gets to Jan. It can't move anymore, so it actually is giving me back what it's seeing in this cell. So what I need to do is to make an exception that if I happen to be in January, so if this cell happens to be January, then give me back December. So once this becomes December, that's fine. Then it's going to go back here and do a -1 to go to November. So I do need to make one exception using if. So if this is Jan, then December. Otherwise, do your index thing. Now let's see if it works. Looks good. Let's change that back to March 2015. That looks good too. For the year, we can use a simple if formula. If this is equal to Jan, then it should take my year and do a -1. Otherwise, it should give me the same year. That looks good too. So when I come to December, it's going to be this -1. Otherwise, it always stays the same year. Now we get to the data, and here we do our index match. What do we index? Where we have our data. I'm going to fix that. What do we need to match? For the rows, so the rows, I have to think I have the year in the rows, so I need to match this in here. I want an exact match. And now for the columns, I need to match my month in here. And I want an exact match. I'm going to copy this all the way to the back. It looks good. Now I have a fully dynamic chart that provides me with the last 12 months every time I change my selection. Now to make this even fancier, I could insert a list by going to Data, Data Validation. Instead of any value, I can put a list, and my source basically are my months. I say OK so that I can select that from here. I'll do the same thing for my year. My source are these. I have now created a fully dynamic chart that shows me the values for the last 12 months. Now you've seen a few examples of the index and match function. I'm really curious to hear about your experiences and if you're able to use the index and match function in your existing reports.